Good job, Sienna. Eat up all your food. What a good girl. What a good girl.
So the next thing I do after my to-do list for the day is I journal. Journaling is a really good thing and it helps me sort out my thoughts. So I get comfortable and I start writing. Smoothie time!
This is my setup for online teaching.
Okay, great. So you followed the process cue of, starting the note well, yeah? And then what happened? The whole thing went better, right? That the bend sounded more connected and then the bottom note had more solidity to it, right? Great. Next one. So try to start with a O shape more. Try that note again. Think O. Your teeth have to be like about this open. Can you see that? Yep. And then keep the air, angle your air upward, like Superman. Better. Did it feel a little bit more stable? Okay, so do it one more time. Good. On the next one, can you turn to your bell side a little bit? Just swing around in your chair. You'll be able to go back and I just want to see your angle. It's on the corners, staying active and in place. The chin being flat and forward here, and the jaw being forward. Teeth being open the right amount, and then the tongue placement. Excellent. You ever play baseball? Do you ever throw a ball at all? Or a frisbee? Right. So you know about the follow through, right? After you start the note, you have to step on the gas a little bit, like as though you were driving. You have to have that follow through, that the core and the gut help propel the air forward. Yeah? So try. question number 1. Where do you start to book gigs? There's some really simple things that you can do to help get your first gig. If you're in music school, my best advice is to practice effectively and be well prepared for your lessons. Often your first gig will be from your teacher. So if you do well in your lessons, they have a higher likelihood of recommending you to either substitute in the group that they're playing in or recommend you for something that they're unable to do. Joining your musicians union, your local musicians union, will get you on a list of people who play your instrument. For every musicians union, there's one major union, the AF of M, American Federation of Musicians, and then each area has a local. When I was in California, I played in a bunch of different orchestras all up and down the coast, so I had to be a member of about 4 different locals, and they each have initiation fees, and they each have dues. So yeah, you get on a list of people who play your instrument, and the contractors in your area will often refer to such a list to find musicians who are a member of the local. A lot of contractors won't hire musicians that are not members of the local, so that's an important thing to think about. Another trick is you can find the principal players of your instrument in the orchestras in your area, and you can reach out to them to have some lessons, or simply to ask if the orchestra has auditions for the sublist, and if not, may I come and audition for you to be considered for the sublist. Another thing is, if you're moving to a new city, that's a tricky one if you're not moving to a new city when you're going to school. If you're going to school, that's easy. You create those connections through your schools, or if there's like a youth orchestra that involves college or master's students that you could participate in. Yeah, the idea is that they're not going to hire you if they don't know you exist. And that brings me back to always be pleasant, always be accommodating, always show up with a smile on your face. So for question number 2, how do I keep a stable job? First step is to win one in the first place. If we're talking about gigs and wanting to be called back for a gig, that's another thing. These are some simple rules that one can follow to ensure that they are received in a positive light. First rule, be on time. If you have a concert, a gig, a job, a lesson, show up early. For the concert, gig, or a job, show up 30 minutes early. Be backstage, be around, be visible. Early is on time is late, and late is dead or fired. So your colleagues, if they don't see you until 5 minutes before the concert, they're gonna get a little uneasy. They're gonna be worried if you're going to arrive, if you're going to show up, and that's not a good feeling. They have other things that they're concerned with that they don't need to have that to add to the list. Another suggestion is to warm up at home. Now, I know this is not always possible. Sometimes we have a 9 a.m. Rehearsal, and you can't play where you live at 9 a.m. One thing is you can always use where you went to the university to go to a practice room, get to the practice room at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, so that you can have your full fundamentals routine in before you show up to your gig. You want to be playing well when you arrive at that job, so having your warm-up done before that will help you a lot. You can do your routine outside. I've definitely, at the Blaisdell Concert Hall, been found outside about 20 to 40 to 50 feet away from the hall doing my routine out there. Or you can find a room. There's usually some green rooms or dressing rooms, or you can go out into the lobby where the ticket sales are, and you could warm up there, because usually there's not a lot of people out there doing that. So you want to find a room away from others so as to not be disruptive. 3, this is in our rules. Smile. Introduce yourself to your colleagues. Be nice. Be accommodating in your section. If you're not playing principal, always nod and say, no problem. Yeah, I can do that. It's not an issue. And then this last thing about keeping a stable job is be prepared to play your best. And if that means you have a job coming up where you have a specific skill that maybe you haven't learned yet, or hopefully when you're professional you've learned all the skills, or that it's not your best skill. For example, some students don't do as well with lip trills, and if you have that coming up on a concert, you're going to want to put that into your daily fundamentals routine, maybe a month or even 2 months out, so that skill then is under your belt. So those are my tips. I guess just smile, show up, and do a good job, and the rest is not really up to you. You can only control those things. So for question number 3, what are some general tips for aspiring professional musicians? Tip number 1 is, before you embark on this journey, know why you want to do it. This is something that you have to do some soul searching on. Your parents will offer their opinions, your friends, your siblings, your teachers, but knowing why you want to go on this journey, and like with all the knowledge about how difficult it can be, this is something that will help you and be something that you can come back to later when you do come upon some disappointment. As you study, learn what motivates you. Is it internal or external? For internal motivation, this is a student or professional who just goes to the practice room and sits down and practice for the sheer love of playing and improving at your instrument or your craft. The external motivation comes from being motivated by performances that are upcoming, auditions, playing with your colleagues, those kind of things. The next tip is to be adaptable, proactive, and creative. Being adaptable is especially helpful during this pandemic time when we're kind of stuck at home and we don't have performances, we don't have auditions, we don't have something that's motivating us. So going back to what motivates you, why you want to do this in the first place, will help you find the way to being adaptable. Trying to find new ways of marketing yourselves and just kind of getting out there, or pick something that you want to do on the instrument or even on a different instrument. Take some time during these kind of times to explore. Being proactive. No one will ever fight for you. You need to fight for yourself. So if that means that you have to get up and get to the practice room at 6 a.m. before everybody else, or if that means that you skip the party that day and you don't go spend time with your friends so that you can get that extra practice session in, or that you don't have an extra long birthday dinner when you have an audition coming up, and you go back to the practice room and just kind of remember what your priority is all the time. So those kinds of things are steps to being proactive. Being creative means that I grew up singing in church choir, and a few years ago I wasn't making enough money by my private teaching and gigging, so I joined a church choir that paid me to be a section leader, and that wasn't what I studied. So knowing what your capabilities are even outside your instrument can help you to make you a more well-rounded musician. Don't take no for an answer. You will come upon people who will tell you this is too hard, don't do it. They will tell you that you're never going to be good enough or you're not going to make it. Don't listen to them. Find another way. You will always be able to, once you're creative and proactive and adaptable, be able to create your own path and find what works for you. Keep perspective. When you run into disappointment, which you will, go back to why you're doing this in the first place, and that answer will probably get you to get back up on the proverbial horse, get to the practice room, go on to the next thing. The very last tip is to be open, never give up, and enjoy the journey. This is a beautiful path you have chosen, and getting to make music for a living is one of the most special things that you could ever do, and I would never give that up for anything. So even through all the difficult times that we have, the disappointments, the bad performances, the good performances, all the highs and lows, I know at the end of the day I'm doing something that I absolutely truly love, so I hope for you you're able to find that as well.